From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. The Supreme Electoral Court in Brazil has resolved to open a probe against far-right presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro. But the Workers' Party is asking the court to disqualify Bolsonaro as a candidate for the presidency following alleged illegal messaging on social media. It is alleged that a number of companies spent more than $4 million to promote the WhatsApp campaign and on other illegal contributions to the far-right candidate. Leaders of the Workers' Party met earlier on Friday with the Supreme Electoral Court to discuss their petition against Bolsonaro. After the meeting, the PT president, Gleisi Hoffmann, said they had the greatest respect for the TSC, but that she is concerned by its response.
I would like to make it known that I came out of this meeting very worried about the Supreme Electoral Court's ability to confront this new situation in Brazil's electoral process. That is, with this fabrication of false news, lies, and their massive dissemination on the internet. I say this because yesterday we presented our legal petition to seek evidence and proof, and we have still no decision. In fact, our petition was made public, and that could lead to destruction of evidence. We are given to understand that the court will deal with our petition according to its usual procedures, as if we were in a normal situation, and that worries us a lot.
Our correspondent in Brazil, Andre Vieira, tells us more.
Reactions to Workers' Party allegations against Bolsonaro keep pouring in. The party is alleging that he is behind the barrage of fake news-type messages designed to discredit his political rival, Haddad and the Workers' Party. A Brazilian newspaper had earlier reported that companies will be sending WhatsApp messages with false information about Haddad. On Friday, WhatsApp has blocked hundreds of accounts in Brazil. One of them is the account of Jair Bolsonaro's son. The head of the Workers' Party and other leaders met with the Electoral Court president. The party is demanding answers so that they can put an end to what they describe as glaring electoral fraud. The party says companies being paid to send fake news out online is a violation of Brazil's electoral law. After the meeting, Gleisi Hoffmann, president of Workers' Party, said the party has already reported the matter to the police. Hoffmann says in no uncertain terms a crime has been committed. She also points out that in other countries, such as India, justice for such scandals has been swift. A media conference by the Electoral Court, originally planned for Friday, will instead take place on Sunday.
We thank Andre Vieira for that report. And earlier we spoke with our other correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Meir, about the online messaging scandal that has marred the presidential race.
But let's say he was disqualified from the race. 50% of Brazilians in a poll that was released today say they're afraid that there's going to be a military takeover of the Brazilian government. And so even if, for example, he was pulled out of the race and Haddad won the election, people are still very worried about the state of democracy in Brazil right now.
Mexican police have clashed with a group of Honduran migrants taking part in the caravan heading to the United States. The migrants broke through the Guatemalan border fence trying to reach Mexican territory. Lines of riot police tried to keep them from entering the crossing the bridge between the two countries. Thousands of Hondurans have left their country since the weekend. Our correspondent Santiago Boton is at the border between Mexico and Guatemala and has the latest.
I'm here at the bridge separating Guatemala and Mexico. Here, thousands of migrants are stranded as they try to cross into Mexican territory. They broke the first fence separating both countries in the hope of continuing their journey. They say Mexican authorities have promised that they would be allowed to cross the border in groups of 40. Several of them, mostly women, boarded some buses provided by Mexican authorities. They were told those buses would take them to shelters, but migrants are skeptical of these promises. They prefer to remain at the border bridge until authorities open the second fence to allow them to pass through. That is all we have from here. We will keep you informed.
That was Santiago Botton. Meanwhile, police is not allowing the caravan to pass the border between Honduras and Guatemala. Honduran migrants have improvised camps in the border as they wait to continue their journey to the United States. They are demanding authorities to open the border. They have also denounced police repression. United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Mexican Foreign Minister Luis Videgaray have met in Mexico City to discuss migration issues. Pompeo is visiting Mexico and Central America as a caravan of thousands of Honduran migrants are trying to reach the United States. The Secretary of State described the situation as a crisis.
The way that Mexico will handle this, the way you will handle this, is your sovereign decision. Mexico will make its decision. Its leaders and its people will decide the best way to achieve what I believe are our shared objectives.
This is a challenge, and as I have expressed to Secretary Pompeo, we are a sovereign country. Mexico's foreign policy is only defined by Mexico.
On his part, United States President Donald Trump says he hopes Mexico will continue to block the caravan.
With that being said, I called Mexico. We just drew a great new deal with Mexico. We have a very good relationship with Mexico. I said, look, we have lousy laws. I hope you're not going to let these people come through your country and march 1,000 miles up through your country and come through our borders, because our laws are horrendous.
Authorities in El Salvador have allowed almost 2,000 migrants to enter the country. Others crossed through the Huascoran River, despite difficulties related to high water levels. Some Hondurans stranded at the border say they are not looking to stay in El Salvador, but intend to continue their journey to the United States. United Nations Special Rapporteur on Human Rights Felipe González has reminded that human rights must take precedence over security concerns. At a media conference in New York, González asked the United States and Mexico to take requests of asylum seriously. One part of the migrant caravan has recently crossed the Mexican border with Guatemala and is heading to the United States.
Security concerns should not overshadow the human rights commitments that the U.S., as any other government, has according to international law, meaning that they have to take seriously the requests for asylum that some of them may have, or that humanitarian considerations should be taken into account, including the fact that many of these people may be escaping from serious risks to their lives.
Saudi Arabia has issued an official statement admitting and confirming the death of missing journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The news, which cited preliminary findings from an official investigation, was announced on state television on Friday. It said a fight broke out between Khashoggi and people who met him in the consulate in Istanbul, leading to the death of the reporter. It was also announced that an intelligence official linked to the case had been dismissed. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Former Peruvian Supreme Court Judge César Inostroza has been arrested in Spain. President of Peru, Martín Vizcarra, has said now they are focusing on returning Inostroza to the country to face justice. The former judge fled the country 11 days ago, facing charges for leading a mafia involved in selling court rulings. This prompted the resignation of Interior Minister Mauro Medina. The National Court in Honduras has resumed the trial on the murder of indigenous leader Berta Caceres, but the Center for Justice and International Law has denounced irregularities and concerns since the trial will not be open to the public. The leader and activist was killed on March 2016. The National Liberation Army chief negotiator Pablo Wilton has once again called on Colombian President Iván Duque to name a commission to resume peace talks.
We are right now in Havana waiting for the government to name its delegation, members or representatives to resume dialogue. I want to emphasize this because, as all of you know, there was a change of government and there have been differences between the two governments. In the ELN, we think that this government has fueled conflict instead of doing the opposite.
And reactions pour in after a recent decision handed down by Colombia's Constitutional Court that no time limit would be placed on women requesting a legal abortion.
Women gathered at the Bolivar Plaza to celebrate the court's rejection of time limits on abortion.
We are celebrating because this stops any move to legalize abortion under limited circumstances. Under the 2006 ruling, access to legal abortion must have been provided in 3 circumstances: when the health or the life of a woman is threatened, when a fetus is non-viable, or when a pregnancy is the result of rape. Now, the new court ruling is a very positive step. The court showed maturity and wisdom.
The question had initially been brought before the court by Judge Cristina Pardo, who argued that a fetus is viable at 24 weeks and should therefore be afforded the rights of any natural human.
The Constitutional Court is giving Congress the chance to regulate the number of weeks in which a woman can access an abortion.
Even though they've won the legal battle, they say the war for abortion decriminalization continues.
This is how society should see abortion as a crime. It is a crime that brings only negative outcomes for women and, by extension, society. This is because women are risking their lives. It only serves to deepen social inequalities because students and indigenous women are the ones who are putting their lives at risk. They often make uninformed decisions.
Meanwhile, opposition congressmen have affirmed that they will defend women's rights above religious beliefs.
We will uphold the court that defends women's right of access to abortion, and we will keep fighting. We maintain our stance on the decriminalization of abortion.
Now they are urging the Congress to decide whether the time for women to pursue a termination of pregnancy will be limited or not.
In a historic ruling, Uruguay has approved a law to guarantee the rights of the transgender community. Our correspondent in Montevideo, Mateo Grille, has the story.
The lower house has approved a law that guarantees equal rights to Uruguay's transgender community. It had already been approved by the Senate. An organization comprising more than 1,000 transgender persons is celebrating the decision, as its community has been severely discriminated against. The average life expectancy of a trans person is just 40 years old. That represents a mere half of the country's average life expectancy. On average, many transgender persons are forced to drop out of school at the age of 15. Many leave homes at 18. With this new legislation, the state is aiming to guarantee health, education, and work rights for the trans community. The bill will now go to the executive power in order for it to be made law by the end of the year.
We thank Mateo Grille for that report. In Chile, 6 young people were detained in student demonstrations in capital Santiago on Thursday. The high school students were arrested for rejecting the government's bill known as Safe Classes. The initiative proposes to expel young people who participated in demonstrations from campus. Activists say the proposal will serve to criminalize student protests. And members of the cultural arts fraternity in Argentina are rejecting a proposed budget cut for the sector in 2019.
Artists, cultural practitioners, students and other supporters of the arts took to the streets under the slogan of #SaveTheCulture.
Next year's proposed budget slash will have serious repercussions. It could result in a termination of several art programs. The symphony orchestra, museums, and even institutions such as the University of Arts are at risk.
Organizers warned that the Macri government's restructuring plan will also affect national festivals, fairs, and regional parties.
We are like a prolific seed that can spread to others. I always say an actor can give full expression to the voiceless. So if that is possible, it's great. Now this proposed budget cut will create a void, one that we can no longer fill with our amplified voices.
Actors and musicians say this is a direct attack on culture by the Macri government.
We don't deserve this. We didn't choose this, and we certainly don't want to see all these critical culture organizations go under. The National Theatre Institute and the National Arts Fund are at risk.
Deputies from the Victory Front are also lending artists and musicians their support. Members say they are going to vote against the budget presented by Macri's administrations. This as they reject the action being taken by the government.
Clearly, they are trying to difficult in popular sectors the access to cultural goods. and on the other side, that only the sectors funded by the market are able to produce cultural acts. Then everything will be capitalized.
Protesters announced that they will be back at the National Congress. They will be alongside the Workers' Union, the General Confederation of Workers, and more groups. The budget will be discussed in the Argentinian parliament.
The Argentinian Court of Justice has ordered the reinstatement of over 100 workers laid off by the state's news agency TELAM. The decision came after a new request was sent by Press Labor Union in Buenos Aires. Social activist Milagro Sala sent a message of support to the sacked public workers.
I congratulate workers of TELAM. I have just known there has been a resolution in their favor. This resolution is a result of people's fight. So, congratulations to them.
Sala also sent a message to all culture workers who protested against fund cuts for culture.
I defend the national theater law which supports culture. I ask that this type of cultural harassment and political persecution ends. Theater is essential to freedom, so we should keep fighting for it.
6 people have died in the Mexican state of Oaxaca following heavy rains. According to the Civil Protection State Coordinator, the victims died in a landslide. The bodies were recovered in joint efforts, which included residents, the army, and the police. Heavy rainfall has brought widespread flooding to communities across Trinidad and Tobago. All disaster management units remain on high alert and continue to assist those trapped in their houses. At least 3 landslides have been recorded. The adverse weather conditions also caused the delay of 6 Caribbean airline flights. So in Trinidad and Tobago, the police is investigating the arrest of 2 student demonstrators at the University of the West Indies. The independent authority says it received a complaint about police officers' conduct during Thursday's protests. Police clashed with students who expressed outrage over poor security in campus. Charges have been laid against the 2 students who allegedly tried to stop officers from reopening the university's gate. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us. Welcome back. Women are commemorating the World Breast Cancer Day, dedicated to increasing awareness for early detection and treatment.
According to the World Health Organization, breast cancer is by far the most common cancer in women worldwide, in both developed and developing countries. There are about 1.38 million new cases and 458,000 deaths from breast cancer each year. Incidence rates vary greatly worldwide and are increasing in developed countries because of increased life expectancy, urbanization, and a more Western way of life. 16% of women have or have had breast cancer. The best way for women to prevent it is to carry out regular self-examination, where they need to look for change in skin, malformation, and pain in the nipples. Experts say these simple tips can help women detect breast cancer symptoms early, before it becomes life-threatening.
Moving on, at least 59 people have died when a commuter train going at high speed in India ran into a crowd. Hundreds of people gathered to watch burning figures during a festival celebration when the train ran through the crowd. This is considered the worst train accident in the country this year. Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in Uzbekistan for his first state visit under the country's new leadership in hope of striking business deals. The 2 countries are set to sign deals worth over $20 billion, mostly for the building of a nuclear power plant in Uzbekistan. The 2 leaders plan to also reinforce economic ties. And now let's take a look at what other stories are making headlines around the world.
Thousands of people have gathered in the city of Caceres in Crimea to pay respect to the victim of a college shooting. At least 21 people were killed and around 40 got injured in the attack. An 18-year-old student started shooting at students and teachers on Wednesday before killing himself. Authorities still investigate the reason behind the mass homicide. hundreds of Hindu devotees in the Indian state of Kerala have been blocking the entrance to a temple from female worshippers. Since Wednesday, the protesters, mainly men, are against a court order that allows women of menstruating age to enter the Ayyappa temple, which has been banned since 3 decades. About 100 riot police are still battling unsuccessfully with protesters in a bid to escort women to the temple.
The Tantri informed me that if we are attempting to take the women ahead, the Tantri would close the temple. Closing the temple is a ritualistic disaster, which we can't afford. So we have taken them up to the temple, we have given them protection up to the temple, but the darshan is something which the Lord should give with the priests consenting.
Malaysia's former Deputy Prime Minister Ahmad Zahid Hamidi has been charged with 45 offences, including money laundering and corruption. He's the leader of the opposition party, the United Malays National Organization, which was ousted in the general elections in May 2018 after 60 years in power. Zahid Hamid pleaded non-guilty and was freed on bail.
One particular person.
Kenya's former sports minister Hassan Wario has been charged with corruption connected to the 2016 Rio Olympics. Wario was charged with 6 counts of abuse of office over misuse of Olympic funds, but was freed on bail of $10,000. He was also denied his passport to resume his duties as ambassador to Austria. Wario and his 6 other former officials allegedly misused more than $500,000 during the Rio Olympics. The next summit between the leaders of North Korea and the United States will likely take place early in the new year. A senior U.S. administration official says Trump and Kim could hold talks sometime after the first day of 2019. The 2 leaders had their first historic meeting back in June. And finally, the world's longest sea bridge connecting mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau is set to open for the public next week. The 55-kilometer crossing is seen as an engineering masterpiece, as it includes a snaking road bridge and an underwater tunnel. The construction was pestered with delays, corruption cases, budget overruns, and even the death of workers. Critics see the bridge as yet another way Beijing is further integrating Hong Kong into the Chinese mainland. And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Stefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.